respect everybody's time, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, even though there'll hopefully be some more people straggling in as we get going. Thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Joy Jordan. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for the district. This is the Parent University on Youth Vaping. Obviously, vaping has been a big topic for at least the last year or so, and the district has been looking at ways we can sort of take a multi-pronged approach. There's a lot of things happening at the high school that are student-focused, and we wanted to do something that was focused on the parents and caregivers to educate them, so that's what tonight is all about. We do have with us one of our MIA student ambassadors, Maggie Dever, who has worked with the other student ambassadors to create a PSA about vaping. So I'm going to let her introduce that, then we'll show the video, and then we'll get started with Kim Slade, our speaker for tonight.
Yeah, so basically me, Andrew, and Sarah over the past 3-4 weeks, we've been going around filming our fall sports teams, and every sports team just says a statement like, I don't vape because we're leaders, we want to respect our younger people coming up. So we've been doing that, and then we just kind of put it together, and Miss Yarnell talks about the Project Connect in it that she's been working with, so yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and do that.
We don't vape, it stops us from reaching our full potential.
We don't vape because it's bad for our bodies and bad for our stamina, which we need on the football field.
We don't vape because we want to set an example for our underclassmen.
We don't vape because our bodies are our temples.
We don't vape because we're role models.
We don't vape because we're not only leaders on our team, but also in our community.
We don't vape because we're dedicated student athletes.
How are you doing? My name is Stacy Yarnell. I'm a wellness teacher here at Monomoy Regional High School. Here at Monomoy Regional High School, Nurse Cheryl Defoe and myself will be running a Project Connect, which is a nicotine cessation program. It will be running for 8 weeks. And what this program is if a student is caught vaping inside Monomoy Regional High School, they have to attend this mandatory session. And the whole goal of the program is to help students reduce their nicotine use and ultimately quit altogether. What I would like to see and what Nurse Cheryl Defoe would like to see is that students ultimately volunteer if they're addicted, and they come and talk to us and try to get help.
My name is Andrew Davick. I'm a junior.
My name is Sarah Babb. I'm a senior.
My name is Maggie Dever, and I'm also a junior, and we are the MIA student ambassadors for Monomoy Regional High School.
Did you know vaping can cause heart, brain, and lung damage and can also lead to cancerous tumors?
Make the right choice. Don't vape.
Change starts with you. Let's make a difference.
My understanding is, and Maggie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be pushed out to all the students?
Yeah,
part of
so
the
it's going to be
announcements?
on the morning announcements for the next week, I think. James, you would know that too. And then it's also, I think we're going to talk about putting it on the website
Yep,
somehow.
we'll put it up on the website,
Yeah.
and we'll push it out to the families that way as well, so great job to those
Thank
kids for doing that. So when we thought about how we could educate parents and caregivers about vaping, we connected with the Barnstable County Department of Human Services and their Regional Substance Abuse Council, and it was really fortuitous timing because this was about the end of the summer, and they were just making final preparations to launch a new campaign about youth vaping called Escape the Vape. So we were able to partner with them kind of right from the start. We were the first and maybe still the only school district to partner with them on this, and that then involved them supplying information and being a presence at orientations at both the middle school and the high school, the Meet the Coaches nights at the middle school and the high school, and the curriculum nights at the middle school and the high school, and then culminating in this event tonight. So we're really lucky to be able to use all their expertise and their knowledge, and tonight we have Kim Slade, who is the Substance Abuse Prevention Manager for that department, and she's an expert in all of this stuff. She's presented on this same information to all of the school resource officers. I know Officer Clark and some of our other officers were there, and to all of the bus drivers with Cape Cod Collaborative. So it's a really well-rounded approach, so kind of all the adults in our kids' lives are hopefully getting the same message and the same information, and we're just thrilled to have her here tonight to share all of this with you.
So for those of you that have heard me before, I'm guessing you were at the DA's SRR meeting, you've probably heard me say this. My little icebreaker is, I'm from the South. I've been away for 20 years. Me saying y'all isn't going anywhere, so feel free to laugh, count, whatever you need to do. It's okay. It's going to happen. So just a little bit of background on my department and myself. I work for the Barnstable County Department of Human Services, and we work to take a regional approach to substance use prevention, overdose prevention, treatment, and recovery when it comes to all Barnstable County residents. So we convene a regional substance use council that's comprised of about 40 different members from all different sectors across Cape Cod. And we meet and discuss what are some ways that we can help improve the health of our community members. So when all of this vaping stuff got started, we started working with Pierce Cote on developing this toolkit to really kind of bring this information to our community members, to our schools, to our parents, and our youth. A little background on me. I've been working in prevention for about 10 years, and I've worked in prevention in Alaska, Rhode Island, and here. So I've kind of seen a couple of different areas and sectors of how things can be different with youth. But I also have 2 kids of my own. I've got a 21-year-old and a 16-year-old, so I understand how difficult it can be raising teenagers. So I'm not just coming at this with numbers for you. I am more of a data person, so please, if I start speaking Greek to you, just yell at me. I don't take it personally. We'll just do it this way. Sorry. Let's do it I'll do it this way then. I'll do it the old school way. There we go. So why are we here? Learn, talk. Learn, listen, and talk. We're going to talk about some of the current trends in youth vaping. What is a vape and what's in it? Some of the effects on our youth. How we can identify some of the devices. Some of the concerns, especially some of the stuff we've heard in the news lately, and what are some of the next steps and resources that are available. So our current trends by the numbers, what we know is that right now, currently 1 in 5 youth report e-cigarette or vape use. In Monomoy schools, your recent student survey showed that your numbers are just a little bit higher than what the national averages are, but that could just be due to finding out more information about your students, being more aware, or even just the timing of some of your surveys. From 2017 to 2018, we saw a 50% increase in the number of youth who are vaping in the middle school, and an 80% increase in the number of youth who are vaping at the high school. I got a new statistic today and didn't have a chance to change it on my slide deck yet, but from 2017 to 2019, that number has actually changed from 80% to 135% increase in the number of high school youth that are vaping. So it's really growing. It's really something that's concerning to the point that in 2018, the Surgeon General declared youth vaping an epidemic. And that brought the federal government in, trying to provide some useful tools and information when it comes to vaping and doing what they can in order to help curb this. Unfortunately, all of the work that we have done over the last couple of decades when it comes to traditional tobacco use, we started seeing, we've seen that decline. Decades of work around tobacco use, around smoking cigarettes. Unfortunately, when vaping was introduced, we started seeing some of those trends change. And what we have seen now is that not only are the numbers of youth vaping increasing, but then also we're seeing an increase in the number of youth that are using traditional cigarettes. So vaping isn't just a problem on its own. We're also seeing that kind of turn to traditional cigarettes, and now we're ending up with a whole generation that's addicted to nicotine, which most everybody in here probably knows is probably one of the most addictive substances that you can be exposed to. As someone who grew up in North Carolina, I feel that totally. I remember walking around the grocery stores in elementary school when I was in elementary and people smoking cigarettes in the local food line. So it is really concerning that we're seeing this change in our trends, and it's something that we really need to make sure that we're out in front of to make sure we're curbing it. So what is a vape? Vaping is the act of inhaling and exhaling any kind of aerosol from one of the electronic nicotine delivery systems or ENDS devices. They come in many different shapes and sizes. I have some examples with me I'll show you tonight, and they'll also be available on the table outside for you. And they can be used to vape other substances, not just nicotine. They're also used to vape THC a lot of times. Let me look at you. So what exactly are in vapes? A lot of people feel like that vapes are just flavored water, that there's not really anything concerning in them. Unfortunately, what we found is that there are a lot of different chemicals in these vapes and in these e-liquids. There's nicotine, there's diacetyl, there's a lot of cancer-causing properties that are in there, and as we're exploring this more and more and doing more research, we're finding more of the negative consequences of some of the ingredients that are in these vapes. Some kids have reported, well, I'm vaping zero nicotine e-liquid. But the problem with that is even the ones that claim that there's zero nicotine in them, if you look on the back of the bottle, 9 times out of 10, the first ingredient listed on the back is nicotine. So even when they feel like they're not getting any nicotine, they really are. And with it being such an addictive substance, it really doesn't take a lot for them to become addicted. Your computer's going to drive me nuts. It doesn't like me. So some of the effects of vaping on the youth brain. What we know about brain development is that it develops from the back to the front. With the prefrontal cortex is the last part of the brain to develop, and that doesn't fully develop until you're in your early to mid-20s. And some of the parts, or some of the functions that are controlled by the prefrontal cortex includes your impulse control, inappropriate behaviors, and foreseeing and weighing possible consequences of behavior. So one of the things that I really like to kind of compare this to, and this is kind of a weird analogy I think, but it works, is a 4-month-old. So the developing brain, as teenagers, they can't quite control all their impulses. They can't control all of their behaviors and foreseeing and weighing possible consequences of behavior. Sometimes as parents and as school staff, we kind of think, why are they making these decisions? Why are they doing something like this? So I liken it to kind of, say, a 4-month-old. If you have a 4-month-old, you've got them bouncing in your lap, and I say this because I just became a grandma. You got them bouncing in your lap, you know, they're pushing off your legs. Are you going to let them go and expect them to be able to stand? I mean, their legs, their muscles, our youth, to be able to make these decisions and be able to control their impulses when that part of their brain has not fully developed yet. Yes, they do have some of that ability, but at the same time, we as adults and leaders in our communities really have an obligation to make sure that we're learning everything that we can about the dangers of any kind of substance use or any kind of negative behaviors that can impact our youth, and make sure that we're providing them with the tools that they need to be successful. So some of the effects that it can have on the brain, that nicotine can have on the brain, is that it can slow brain development, and it can affect memory, concentration, and learning, and affects their self-control, attention, and mood. And as the brain is developing, and that front part of the brain still hasn't fully developed, what we have found is that the effects of nicotine can actually permanently change some of the neurotransmitters and how your brain develops, and can ultimately lead to the propensity to have more of a possibility of becoming addicted to substances later, other substances later in life. In addition to the effects on the brain, there are a lot of different effects that vaping can have on the body. There's circulatory effects, including some of the increased clotting tendencies, some of the ones that we're seeing more of the tachycardia, muscular, you can see tremors and pain, different hormonal responses, gastrointestinal, we're seeing a lot of with some of the school nurses, from the nausea and diarrhea and dry mouth, and then with the central nervous system, some of the lightheadedness and headaches and sleep disturbances and irritability. Some of the things that have concerned our schools that we've talked to have been the mixed sick issues. School nurses are seeing students that are coming in and feeling sick to their stomach, having extreme anxiety, being irritable, having headaches, and just not knowing what's going on. They're going to the school nurse. And that's a result of being nic sick, meaning they're taking in too much nicotine. So one of the most popular devices that is used by our youth is the Juul. Kind of looks like a flash drive. And one of these pods in a Juul contains the same amount of nicotine as an entire pack of cigarettes. And we're seeing kids that are using an entire pod in a matter of an hour or two. So if you could imagine smoking an entire pack of cigarettes in an hour or two, the amount of nicotine that your body is taking in, no one is meant to have to be able to deal with that. So these next couple of slides are full of a bunch of words. This is all very new information related to some of the recent vaping-related illnesses that we've been hearing about in the news. And so I wanted to make sure that we have some of this information for you as well. So what do we know about this at this point? It's called e-cigarette or vaping, let's see, eval. E-cigarette or vaping product use associated with lung injury. Eval is much easier to say. As of October 15th, there were almost 1,500 confirmed cases through the CDC and 33 deaths, with the youngest being 13 years old. We've had 78% of the patients report that they use THC-containing products, and that the latest findings have suggested that particularly the ones on the black market are the ones that are linked to the most cases. What we don't know is exactly what it's related to. There's been speculation, there's been several different reports that have come out, but ultimately we don't know definitively what the exact cause is in these cases. So there's no one compound or ingredient that's been identified as the cause, and there's a lot of different substances and sources that are under investigation still. Some of the symptoms of eval include the cough, shortness of breath, or chest pains, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, fever, chills, weight loss. A lot of these are some of the things that you hear about when someone is NIC sick, but it's a lot more extreme. There have been patients that were hospitalized and on ventilators. Patients have been in comas. It's really not something to mess around with. So even though they've linked it to potentially to THC cartridges from the black market, the recommendations are that you don't use any kind of vaping device, especially ones that contain THC. But also to note that for youth, no amount of use of any kind of nicotine or THC containing device is acceptable. And this is always the fun part for me because I like show and tell. Recognizing some of the devices and accessories. Some of the devices that are used for electronic nicotine delivery can resemble traditional methods of smoking. You've got the e-pipe, the e-cigar, some of the larger mod devices, disposable cigarettes. You know, we don't see quite as many, actually I don't think I've ever seen anyone use an e-pipe, but we don't see as many of these used among youth as we do some of these other more concealable devices, like these. So I do have the example of a Juul, and I can pass that around. And yeah, feel free to take them apart, play with them, whatever you want to do. So not a marker, not a USB, not a highlighter. These are all so easily concealable by our youth that it's really concerning, and it can make it really difficult to identify. When we talk about not a USB, I know the white doesn't really go along with it well, but you can see how similar they are in size. And just like a USB, this plugs into your computer to charge. So it can be really difficult for parents to know what they're looking at. So I'm just going to start passing the Juul around. Like I said, take it out and look at it and just see kind of what your kids are being exposed to. And then we have to talk about the flavors, because this is what really attracts our youth. When they've done some national studies, what they have found is that 80% of the kids who start trying a vape device are doing it because of the flavors. They think it's flavored water, like I talked about just a minute ago, and it tastes good to them. So they feel like it's cool, and everybody's doing it. It's not as harmful as cigarettes, so they feel like it's okay to use. But these e-liquids are really attractive to our youth, and they have flavors like Swedish Fish and Sour Patch Kids, and then this one is one that I've always found kind of interesting, Mystery. The Mystery is like with the Airheads when I was younger, of The bottom of the batch, they take it all, they dump it all together, they make a mystery airhead or a jawbreaker, I can't remember which one it was. And this is the same thing, they take everything that's left over, dump it all together, and sell it as mystery flavor. And just like with big tobacco, we're seeing some of the same approaches when it comes to marketing. In 2009, the FDA banned flavored cigarettes other than menthol, and the research has shown us that the flavors are more appealing to our youth. So like with big tobacco, we've had to take and look back at some of the approaches that were used then that were evidence-based, that we saw that worked, and we're trying to incorporate those more now into some of the work that's being done so that we can effectively try to reduce the number of youth that are vaping altogether. The clothing and backpacks aspect is something that is really concerning. One of the pieces I'm going to show you here, and I'll have this available for y'all to look at, is a hoodie that is available for purchase. It's $30 online, and it's used to conceal a vaping device. The device, and this is one that's typically used for THC, simply hooks on there, slides into a hidden pocket, and the other drawstring from their hoodie can be used to inhale the nicotine, or the vapor, or the aerosol. Now, I don't think we're going to see a lot of youth that are going out and ordering vaporware hoodies, but what we are seeing is that youth are taking their own hoodies and altering them so that they can work in the same way. So we've seen kids start chewing on these things more. You think they're chewing on their drawstring from their hoodie, because even I do that. I still chew on my drawstring sometimes. But in reality, what they may be doing is using one of these hosed devices that are said to be drawstrings and actually vaping. There's also concealable pockets inside a pocket so that they can hide some of their accessories for these. I'll pass this around as well. And you can take this off and unscrew it and everything. This is a vape cartridge. Like I said, it's traditionally used for THC concentrates. Don't worry, there's never been anything in that one. Just play around with that and see how they're made. Vaporware has actually put out a parent guide now on how to detect their clothing line, as well as a diagram that breaks down exactly how it works. I'm not sure if that's really meant to help parents or to help youth figure out how to make their own, but we'll see. It's just something that parents and schools need to be aware of. In addition to the hoodies that they sell, they also have backpacks out there that resemble the Camelbacks, the hydration packs, and they do actually have the hydration bladders in them, but they also have another tube that is similar to the one that's on the hoodie that allows them to conceal their devices and then use that as they're going throughout their day to vape their nicotine or THC. And that particular one that I'm passing around is actually a beach cover-up. So they even market to people going out in public to use.
What a noble purpose.
Yeah.
What a noble profit-making purpose.
Absolutely, absolutely. Some of the things that I've heard from people are, it's big tobacco that's pushing out the vaping. They don't want it because they don't want their products to go anywhere. And one of the things that a lot of people don't realize with that is that all 5 major big tobacco companies own stock in vaping companies. The owner of Altria, who's the parent company that makes Marlboro, they own 35% stake in Juul, which is what 75% of the youth are vaping off of. In addition to that, the CEO of Juul stepped down recently, and Altria's engineering expert has stepped up to fill that role. So now Marlboro has somebody in Juul, and they're using some of the same marketing practices that we've seen in the past. So all of this is just taking a page from the playbook of big tobacco, back before even I was born, and really kind of promoting these products to our kids, because as they noted years ago in some of their internal memos, today's youth are the next generation of smokers. whatever form that may come in, we're still finding our youth addicted to nicotine and needing to address these issues as they're coming out and trying to stay on top of all of this new technology that's coming out. There are a lot of different devices that can be used for vaping. And in addition to the devices, there's also a lot of different accessories. There are coils for some of the mods. The mods are the larger ones that put out the huge that we see. Those are usually some of the older adults, the older population, probably in their upper 20s to young 30s that are using the big mod devices. And there's different cartridges, and if you pull the one off of the Juul, you can see one of the pods, the one that screws off, that's a typical cartridge that's used. And then the e-liquid bottles, I don't have an actual bottle because I don't like the residue that remains on them sometimes, but I do have one of the box. And the chargers. For the mods, you have the removable batteries that come out and they go into a charger like this. But for the Juul, it's this tiny little USB thing that just plugs into your computer, which again makes it really difficult, and that's the most popular one that's being used by youth. So that's the one that parents and schools really need to be aware of. So what are some of the signs of vaping in youth? Some of the common signs include cotton mouth, nosebleeds, passing on caffeine, and adding more seasoning than usual to their food, which I thought was kind of interesting, but it makes sense when you find out why. So cotton mouth and nosebleeds, some of the chemicals that are in e-liquids actually absorb the moisture from your skin. So when you vape on a regular basis, you're not getting that moisture, your skin can crack and bleed, they'll have cotton mouth, and really the nosebleeds have been kind of a common thing that I've seen personally. Passing on caffeine, one of the first slides I told you that tachycardia or a fast heartbeat can be a sign of being nick sick, and it's also a sign of vape use. When youth start experiencing this, they know how to counteract that by cutting back on their caffeine. Caffeine has the same stimulant effect. So we're seeing kids that are cutting back on their morning Dunkin' Donuts or Mary Lou's, and instead they're replacing that stimulant with nicotine. And then adding more seasoning than usual to food. Vaping creates what they call vapor's tongue. It leaves a coating on the tongue that doesn't allow your taste buds to fully receive the flavors of the food. As a result, we're seeing people adding more seasonings to their food, whether it's salt or whatever their flavor of choice may be. And some of the other signs of vaping that you might experience could be some of the sweet smells, cotton candy, Sour Patch Kids, the Bath and Body Works. Makes it kind of difficult, especially when you have teenagers that really like to douse themselves in all the smells. Coughing, exhaling into their clothing, such as up a sleeve or into a hoodie, into their backpacks. Some kids are using empty water bottles and exhaling into the bottle and then just capping it. But really when you have the devices like the Juul, it's such a light aerosol that comes out that it's not even really that noticeable. So it's really just easy for them just to kind of cover it, and you would never know. And then moodiness. Some recent concerns have really come up about the fact that parents and doctors, physicians are noticing that kids who are vaping are becoming more and more irritable and actually experiencing some of the same side effects and symptoms that you would see with other types of addiction, not typically seen with nicotine addiction. They seem to be a little more moody and irritable than you would typically think with just a nicotine addiction, unless you're going through withdrawal. And some of our other concerns, like I've mentioned here, is that vaping is also a common method of using marijuana. We all know that marijuana has a negative impact on the teen brain. Again, we talk about the developing brain from the back to the front. And all of these substances, any substance that a youth can use, can impact the development of the brain. And then the parents and doctors are seeing the mood swings and behaviors that are more indicative of other substance use disorders than smoking. And then second and third hand vapor. We all know about secondhand smoke. You're not supposed to smoke around a kid. You're not supposed to smoke in a car. We know that it remains on the clothing. with the aerosol that comes out of these vaping devices, not only are you getting a coating of this residue on whatever surface there may be in the room that you're vaping in, but the aerosol can actually carry out of the room and is being found in rooms outside of the one that's currently being vaped in. And it remains. So then when you have, say, a toddler, I'm going to keep going back to babies. When you have, say, a toddler that's learning to crawl and they're on a floor and someone's been vaping in the room, they're being exposed to these chemicals that at this point we honestly have no idea what the long-term effects are. You know, these devices haven't been around long enough for us to really truly know what the long-term effects are. And so we're exposing yet another generation of children to some of these chemicals that can really have some long-term lasting impacts. And then also, the same as with smoking, it remains on your clothes. So if you're holding a child, they're being exposed to that as well. When you're vaping in a room that there's other people in, they're also inhaling all of these chemicals, which can include some of the small metal particles. It's got cancer-causing components to it, and there's so many unknowns that even on top of what we do know, that vaping is negative when it comes to kids, there's so many unknowns that there's no reason why anyone should be promoting this to our youth, or even a proponent, or even saying, well, it's better than cigarettes. Safer doesn't equal safe. So what are some of the steps we can take? With this campaign, we came up with a tagline of learn, listen, and talk. So when it comes to learning, you need to educate yourselves on everything that you can about vaping and the dangers of vaping. Make sure it's all fact-based. We don't do anything that exaggerates claims. We don't try to data or cherry-pick data and find what works for us. We strictly give the facts. If you go to mychoicematters.net, it's a Barnstable County specific site that does have a lot of great information, not just for vaping, but for all substance when it comes to youth. And I highly encourage you to learn everything that you can about it. It's really kind of amazing when you start diving into some of the research that's out there on the impacts that nicotine can have on the brain. The second step is listen. Hear what your child has to say about what they know and or why they're vaping. The key word here is listen. You need to hear them. As parents, sometimes it can be easy to jump into, well, why are you doing this, and getting defensive with them. But it's really important to sit down and listen, hear their side. Don't interrupt. Let them tell you what they know, why they're doing it, what their friends are doing, and what are some reasons why they wouldn't want to vape. And then have the talk. You can talk to your child about what you've both learned. What are some of your boundaries and consequences? What do you expect from them? Where do you draw the line? And how they can stop vaping if they currently do vape, which can be really difficult. Nicotine is highly addictive. It only takes a week to 2 weeks for them to become addicted to nicotine. Nicotine withdrawal is terrible. It can take 9 tries for the typical adult to quit smoking cigarettes, the nicotine part of it. So we're looking at all of these youth that are addicted to nicotine. There are no patches that are approved for kids. There are no gums or lozenges that are approved for kids. So we're really kind of taken back to looking at what are some of the apps and some of the counseling and motivational interviewing techniques that we can use in order to really talk to them about their cessation progress and how they want to approach that. I tell people the best way to do it, once you get your kid in the car, just lock the doors and make them talk. They're not going anywhere. Studies have actually shown that kids are more receptive to hearing what their parents have to say if their parents can't see their face. So if you're driving and you're talking and they can't see, and you can't see their face, they feel more like they're not going to see disappointment in your eyes, or that you're going to be studying their face and looking for some indication that they're saying or doing something wrong. So really kind of getting them in a car where they're captive audience and having this conversation is really kind of an ideal time. I spoke to a child psychologist one time who actually told me that he would have his conversations with his kids in the dark, that they would sit in the living room, turn all the lights off, and have these conversations, because his kids felt comfortable being able to talk without fear of seeing anything on their parents' face that might indicate that they're upset with them or disappointed in them. So some of the resources that are available for youth when it comes to cessation are up here on this slide. Catch My Breath is a prevention curriculum that's being used in several different schools, including Falmouth, and I believe Wareham is using it now as well. Stanford University has put out a tobacco prevention toolkit. Aspire is also another program that's focused on prevention and cessation as well. And then Smokescreen is a video game that kids seem to like. And then Scholastic also has a program for schools to use. For specifically apps for youth to quit vaping or smoking, the Truth Initiative, This Is Quitting, and Smoke Free Teen are all three national apps or text-based programs that are proven to actually help kids quit vaping and smoking. And all of these resources are in the toolkit that's available online, but they're also in the bags that I have out front for each of you. So I highly encourage you to grab one on your way out and check out those resources.
Question?
Yes.
With the data showing that 1 in 4 of our kids have reported vaping within 30 days, I think one can conclude there is going to be a significant population in this school who are going to become nicotine addicted. And I'm just curious whether the school is going to be contemplating sponsoring on-site any type of nicotine addiction treatment programs that our kids can attend in a peered way so that we can help them.
Great.
Not simply refer them to their own online challenges, but actually bring about an active, coordinated, hands-on program.
Right. So I'm not staffed specifically at Monomoy, so I can't answer all of the questions for that, but I do know that they are implementing Project Connect, which is evidence-based, and that is a program that's implemented within the schools. I believe Joy was just saying that you use it when someone has been caught with a device or has been caught vaping, and there's a prevention aspect to that, but there's also a cessation aspect to it, and it uses evidence-based methods of motivational interviewing and change in order to help implement that. So that's an excellent program that's being offered nationwide, and we've partnered with the organization that sponsors it, and we feel like it's honestly probably one of the best tools to put into place. But as far as anything in addition to that, that's something you would have to speak to the school about.
We do have a couple of administrators from the high school who, when we finish the presentation and we get to the Q&A portion, they can talk a little bit more about that aspect of it.
Okay.
More details.
So in addition to the resources on the previous slide, we have a lot of other resources available on our website. I work for the Department of Human Services, so we do have a lot of information on there. But the best resource that we have at this time that we've created for youth prevention specifically is the My Choice Matters website. We do have several different social media accounts. If you're on social media, I highly encourage you to follow us. We put out a lot of great information. And we've also developed several different infographics. One is specific to vaping and one is for marijuana use. And there's even tips on the one for marijuana use if you're a parent that does use marijuana legally, what you can do to keep your youth safe. One of the big things that I do like to tell parents when I talk to them is that, when I'm speaking to you, I'm not speaking to you saying, if you're an adult that vapes, you're a terrible person, you should stop, whatever. My goal is to prevent youth from doing this. My goal is to make sure that we're giving our kids the best possible chance for a healthy future. So even if you're an adult that uses marijuana, that vapes, that smokes, you can still be a proponent for youth prevention. You know, it's something that we all kind of have an obligation to do. It takes a village, and it's something that I feel very strongly about. I honestly, as an adult, I don't care what you're doing. I just don't want our kids to be doing it. Yes?
Actually, just to speak to that point, I just was reading about the kids whose parents vape are more likely to vape.
Yes.
So in that regard, is it not prudent to encourage the parents to try to?
It is.
Yeah.
It's very important that parents know that it's not good. But I'm not here to pass judgment on that at all. Mine is specifically around what resources can we provide for our youth. There's a lot of great information out there on adult vaping and how it can impact the youth that vape. I mean, kids, they model their parents' behavior. We all know that. They model us. It's adorable at times, and at other times it's the most frustrating thing in the world. But it's important that we're modeling positive behaviors regardless of whether that's a substance or how we treat a stranger. Kids are going to model those behaviors. So my work specifically with the grant that I do is 100% youth prevention focused. We do have another department at the county who focuses on the adult aspect of that, and we do collaborate frequently, but I traditionally only speak to the youth prevention aspect of it.
I guess my thought is just, if you're looking at causes of why kids vape, like why do they start, the addiction is the second kind of complicating factor, but if one of the biggest risk factors is parents who smoke, why not incorporate parental education and cessation for parents to prevent the kids from starting in the first place?
We do have a partner at the county that we do work with on a regular basis for that. As my grant is specifically youth focused, I'm limited as to what I'm allowed to do because I'm funded through a federal grant, and the same with him. He's not allowed to touch anything youth focused. So that's why we traditionally do like a collaboration there and try to do some of that work together. But if you would like more facts and information on it, I can certainly provide it to you.
Well, I'm just thinking maybe for Joy's perspective, like kind of coordinating, if we're really going to try to do kind of a full court press, maybe we really need to be innovative and try to target both, not just the kids, but the parents as well.
And there's information in this toolkit that will actually tell you that if you're a parent that does use one of these devices, don't do it around them. Not telling you to go sneak, but at the same time, you don't want to be exposing them to it. Just as you wouldn't want to smoke in a room with a child, you don't want to be vaping in a room with a child either. You don't want them to see it, in addition to not being exposed to some of the chemicals that are coming out of it. Yes.
Are there any federal rules or guidelines that would potentially limit the amount of nicotine in a...
At this time, no. Originally, when vaping became very popular, the FDA said that they weren't going to actually start looking at vaping as a problem or as something that they needed to regulate until 2023. And then in 2018, when the Surgeon General declared youth vaping an epidemic, they started looking at it a little bit closer. And now there is some legislation at the federal level that's being looked at and some steps that are being taken to start addressing it more as far as not just regulating the amount of nicotine that's in them, but also what types of devices are being sold, whether or not the flavors should even be allowed. Because keep in mind, in 2009, the federal government banned flavored tobacco products. So why are we allowing other flavored nicotine products to be on the market? You're not allowed to advertise cigarettes on TV, on Facebook, so why are we allowing these electronic nicotine devices to be advertised on?
They advertise it like it's a health...
Right, like it's a cessation device. Yeah. And the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine actually did a lot of research on that, and they did find that for adults, it may be a tool that can be used for cessation when used properly. Now that's the key word right there, because if an adult is using, say, a vape to quit smoking, but they're also smoking some, they're actually usually intaking more nicotine than what they previously were and increasing that addiction. So there's so much new information that's coming out every day that it's almost impossible to stay on top of it all. But there is some work that's being done at the federal level to try to regulate some of this as it's happening, especially right now with some of the deaths that we've seen. They're really pushing for it hard now. So here's my contact information. I have bags for everyone that would like one at the back, and they include this little flyer that just has some information on the front about what's included in our toolkit. But then on the back, there's tips to quit vaping, as well as all of those resources for the cessation apps and programs that are available for you, that are appropriate for you. So what I'm going to do is I'll take any questions that you have, but I also have several different devices that I'm going to start just kind of hand them all around and let you guys just kind of check out some of the stuff that comes along with this. I had more and I couldn't find them. I'm wondering if somebody... So this is one of the boxes that the bottles of e-liquid come in, and this one is touted as being 3 milligrams of nicotine. These are some of the coils that are used in replacement. They're replacement coils for some of the larger mod devices. And the little cartridge on the end, let me grab this real quick. On the end of the pen. This one is also used typically for THC, and as you can see, it's very concealable in the palm of your hand. So it screws on just like it does with the pen, and then they can easily conceal it in their hand. So I'm going to
How much are they kids spending on all this?
What's that?
How much does this cost?
So the coils like this, I think it's about $15 or $20 for a 4-pack. This little device, the device itself, would be the Nano, Leaf Buddy, about $30. The cartridges, if you buy them at a dispensary with THC in them, one this size will run about $60. And that's for half a gram. And the THC content is usually somewhere between 70 and 90% in one of these cartridges, which is extremely high. The liquids, they run about $10 to $15 depending on where you're getting them from. The pens are usually about 20, and then the hoodie I've got right there was 30. So the Juul, however, is, I think it's about 40 or 50 for a starter kit, and then the pods themselves you can get for $15, $10 to $15. Since Governor Baker implemented the ban on those products, we've seen kids that are actually getting 4 packs of the pods and then selling each pod for about $40 a piece. My daughter actually sent me a screenshot the other day. She was like, "Mom, look at what this person's doing." She was on social media and it was advertised right there. I was like, wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, my son was in the bathroom. He goes to Nauset High School, and they're selling pods or whatever in the bathrooms. Mm-hmm. Like, it's disgusting. It's just
they're very business savvy. Yes.
Since kids can't legally buy them, how are they getting them?
Right. Great, very great question. So the number one way that kids get them is through their social contacts. They get them through older siblings. They get them through older friends. Some are getting them from their parents, which is why the legal age to use was lifted to 21. That's an evidence-based way of decreasing youth use. Because if you don't have an 18-year-old that can go buy it, that goes to school with the 16-year-old, then you're creating more of a barrier for them and making it more difficult for them to get. We were also seeing a lot of kids were ordering stuff online. A lot of people now, they give Visa gift cards to kids for Christmas, and teenagers, they're impossible to buy for. You give them a gift card. They can go online and they can order with that. If they know when their parents are going to be home, they know when they can have the delivery come in, or they can ship it to a friend's house. So they're getting them that way. Now you cannot order any of the products online and have them shipped to Massachusetts, and the legal age is 21, even though everything is currently banned. That will still remain in place even if they do lift the ban in January.
Kim, there was a youth survey done at the school, the results of which are available online. And there are a series of questions relating to vaping in that survey. and I think it's slide 19, that answers the question of how
they're getting
did
the products.
you get, how are you getting vaping products? And contrary to widespread belief, only 2% of our kids indicated they got it online. Only 2%.
For mass, it's very difficult to get online in mass.
And so that means that the conclusion you can arrive at is that they're getting the product from local stores via an older sibling or boyfriend or a girlfriend or parent. Somebody is buying the products locally and giving them to
And that's the social aspect of it, is that they're getting it from people that they know. I will say, I've gone into several different vape shops and just to see what their process was. And I got carded as soon as I walked in, and I got carded as soon as I got ready to go up to the counter, which really kind of made me feel a little bit better about it. You know, those particular shops were doing their due diligence, but at the same time, you know, how do we stop it when older kids, you know, 21-year-olds now are going into the shops and buying these products and then giving them or selling them to our younger youth? That's really kind of the area that we need to be focused on.
I also heard recently that the county does what are called compliance checks, where they send in youth to try and buy from a merchant, and the youth are underage. And the idea is, if the merchants are selling these products to kids underage, you'll catch them. Well, I heard the other day that one of the dynamics here is that when the county comes in and does these compliance buys, they're using kids that the merchants don't recognize. And so they'll be very careful not to sell products to a possible compliance buy. But if it's a kid that they know, who's say only 19, they'll sell it. In other words, it's a way to work around getting caught. If you wanted to be a merchant that did sell,
Right.
you know who you can safely sell to because they're familiar faces.
Right, so compliance checks are very widely used when it comes to alcohol, when it comes to tobacco, and now with vaping products. And my counterpart of the county who does the compliance checks, you know, they have had some failures. But at the same time, you know, these compliance checks have been used for decades for cessation of other substances, and they are an evidence-based way to help reduce youth use. There's not going to be a one-size-fits-all that's going to catch everybody. There's not going to be one way that's going to reach everybody, which is why there's programs like this, and there's programs like Project Connect, and there's just a multitude of ways that we try to get the information out there and try to educate people on what's out there, and really also try to reach the shop owners. You know, just like with alcohol retail sales, how they have to have responsible beverage service training to be able to recognize when someone has a fake ID or is underage. You know, now they're requiring that for marijuana dispensaries as well. And honestly, I feel like they should have something similar for vaping and tobacco, because as people are going through these trainings, and I've done the alcohol and marijuana compliant or responsible server training. When you go through those trainings, you really learn so much that it can actually change people's minds as to, wow, do I really want to sell to a kid? When you start learning this information, it's too easy, especially as a young adult, to kind of brush it off and say, you know, well, it's not that bad, or, you know, I did it as a teenager and I'm fine. But when you really start learning about what some of the implications can be on the developing brain especially, and for future addiction, it does kind of open your eyes to things just a little bit. So I've recently had a family member who was in North Carolina, was like, oh, I quit smoking using a vape pen, so, you know, it's all great, and I'm going to let my kid do it. And I said, no, you know, let me sit down and talk with you. And so we went through a couple of things, and you know, he's now like, okay, you know, maybe I'll think about it a little bit. So at least you have a chance to influence a little bit of their thinking process and educate them a little bit in the time. Yes.
Can you speak to any success stories that you maybe are aware of with bathroom vaping in the schools? You know, there's, you know, at other schools we've taken the doors off, put the doors back on, there's a monitor, there's not a monitor. What has successfully deterred kids from vaping in the bathrooms?
That's really dependent on each school and their climate and what the staff are able to do, because each school has a different type of policy when it comes to chemical health and when it comes to diversion tactics and things. It's really individual to the schools. You know, Cape Cod Tech has put in the bathroom monitors. They can give false positives or go off when there's not any vaping going on.
Like an electronic monitor, you mean, as opposed to a human in the bathroom?
Right.
Okay, so they have like a little sensor?
Yes.
Okay.
And it detects the vapor. They're really expensive, and you know, from what I've heard, there can be some success with them. Sometimes they do go off when there's not anything going on. Sometimes they don't catch it, but they are still a deterrent, definitely. Because if the youth know that they're there, they're not going to be in there. They're going to intentionally try to avoid that one. Some schools have had success with you know, having a physical monitor there to make sure that it's not going off. That's honestly not feasible. We can't expect our schools to really have a staff person just to stand in every single bathroom and make sure the kids aren't vaping in there.
I guess, I don't know, like you go to the symphony and there's a lady there handing you a towel. They have people that hang out in bathrooms at nicer hotels that hand you a cloth to wipe your hands.
Then it comes back to how do the schools pay for that?
Yeah.
How do they pay for an additional staff person to come in and stand at a bathroom?
Well, maybe we get the Jewel company to pay for it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm the assistant principal, one of the two assistant principals here, and we explored the vape monitors, the electronic monitors in the bathroom, and I spoke to people from Cape Cod Tech last year, and at the time that I spoke to them, they said, we can't recommend them to you at this time. There were so many false positives with it going off for perfume, for deodorant, for whatever the reason was. And the day I called, or the week I called, they told me they had 16 monitors in the building, and more than half were down, were non-functional. So they were trying to work with that company. And the company was trying to make good on this because they didn't want to lose that business and they wanted it to be successful, so the tech school would recommend it to others that inquired. So we didn't act on it at that point.
Can I say something?
I have heard since then that the detectors are in better shape now, so we are exploring that right now. Yes?
I owned a store in East Harwich, and we have a vape ban. Since then, we lost 30% of our business. But we are still working with the Jewel company. Actually, the Jewel is the only one company that they are launching the system that you can track the device where it's your kid bought from. They are working on a special POS system that they come and survey with us. A lot of people don't know, but I was the first one who started the Jewel in Massachusetts. But like I had a good relation before, but now it's owned by Altria, which is Marlboro. But I have no contacts, but we are talking by emails. So they are the only one company they are using the parts which is made in the United States, which is more safer. The most death comes out from the aftermarket parts which fits on the Jewel. So Jewel, they are working very hard on their devices or their parts that if you find from your kids, you can scan it or you can just put your code number on it. You can find it where they got from.
Well, I'm not sure the jury's not out yet on what's causing these inflammatory pulmonary processes. That's my understanding.
Yeah,
that's really there's no
proof yet. But the thing is, the most that and most the bad chemicals they put it in, it's all made in China products.
I think that is speculation. I don't think we know that yet.
Yeah, because they say it's the metal and everything that they're using there.
There's multiple carcinogenic
so that's why the
particles,
working hard on
and it's
it.
the particulate matter. There's a number of things.
But I think the interesting part is that Jewel is working to implant something so at least you can determine where the device was purchased.
Yeah. But what is that?
How does that help with underage purchases?
But they could have bought it from their brother,
Right.
But I'm going to be a little oversimplistic with some things, and it will be here. I don't actually see this as the school's problem. Like, this is a health problem for these kids, and these kids happen to be at school, and if they're doing it at school, that's the school's problem.
It's a problem for all the kids.
Right.
The second hand and third hand.
But if they're doing it at school, that's the school's problem. So my question is about penalties for kids caught doing it at school. Like, I think that's the deterrent, like very severe
Well, I'll
penalties
tell
at
you
school.
that the school has changed its position on this. Last year, there was a lot of vaping. It really hit us by surprise, and it started a little bit the year before, but certainly not a tremendous presence of vaping, but last year, and that's when we started exploring all these options. When this first came to light, we didn't know whether we're dealing with nicotine, whether we're dealing with marijuana. We really didn't know. So we were treating these like drug infractions, the way we treat drug infractions at school. So we were suspending students. Suspending had no effect on decreasing usage or incidence of vaping. So last year, and we were taking kids out of school for multiple days. They're missing instruction, and they're not getting any education about
They're
vaping.
sitting at home and vaping.
So last year, Cheryl Defoe, our school nurse, and Stacy Arnold, who was in the PSA, attended a training by the Karen Institute about the Project Connect. So we are now instituting Project Connect this year. We're not including a suspension, but students who are caught vaping or with vaping paraphernalia are mandated to attend an 8-week program. Cheryl can speak a little more to the nature of the program, but the logistics of it is when a student is caught, the student and the parent would come in for a meeting with me and Cheryl. We would discuss the issue. We would sign the student up for the 8-week program, which takes place during the school day. We have our Jawsome hour, 1 hour during the day, where students eat for half and then have the option to participate in something. So this removes their opportunity to participate in some type of fun activity. The Project Connect would run 1 day a week during the 8 weeks during the Jawsome hour. So that is how we are tackling this. We are hoping to attract, as I think Stacy said in the PSA, we want students to come forward and say, you know, I have a problem. I haven't been caught. I don't want to be caught. I realize the health problems. I want help in stopping this. So we're hoping to get kids voluntarily participating.
What about the second time they get caught? What happens the second time?
I mean, I just feel that the schools have so much to deal with already.
Well, we do, but it is our responsibility.
I don't know. We have a daughter who has asthma. And as you say, you know, the data on second-hand and third-hand exposure is not out yet. And for one, it disturbs me greatly that this is happening in the school.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to, I'm sorry to see the suspension gone, frankly. I know it's like punitive for drug use or whatever.
Yeah,
but from a
yeah, it really
but from maybe
effect.
for that particular person, but for the kids that are not using it but are getting exposed, it is, because that's one less person who's vaping in the school. So what happens the second time they get caught?
We haven't had that occurrence, but I think we would take a stronger disciplinary approach at that point, plus see what we can do to put them through the Project Connect again, or if there's some type of an extension program.
So this is all new in your training thing?
Right, we're adjusting. We started, the training happened of our personnel in the spring. We made a presentation to the school committee over the summer. We modified our handbook over the summer to list the Project Connect program and how that works for students. We educated our faculty at our first faculty meeting. The bus drivers have been educated. We have town hall meetings the first week of school, and also with the change of the semester where we talk to each grade level, the principal, assistant principal.
And
so there's not a clear,
and we educate so we're trying to take a multi-pronged approach to this.
I keep coming back to, so what happens the second time? And I don't know, as a parent, you know, we say, okay, your first warning, your second warning, your third. It's very clear what the consequences are if you continue to break the rules. So I guess what's the consequences if they continue to break the rules?
Well, as I said, we haven't had that, although...
Right, but I'm saying it can be a deterrent if they know the first time you get put in this Project Connect, the second time you get suspended.
Right.
You know, so I think, you know, wait and see when it happens and we'll figure it out. It doesn't sound like a great...
Well, actually, we have the leverage, the opportunity to do a suspension if we wanted to do a suspension. Say, hey, look, the first time we put you through this program, there was no suspension. Now it's happening again. You're going to be facing...
Right, but I'd like to get the word out to all the kids. It's not just this one, not on an individual basis. Maybe have a meeting with the school and to all the kids, say, listen, this is what happens with vaping, this is what happens to your lungs, this is blah, 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 this happens the first time we enroll you in this program.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, okay.
This is our first year of testing this out.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing a lot of good stuff. I agree. I just want to...
You know, how many vapors, how many students have been through the Project Connect, analyze where we are and see what kind of impact we're having, and then determine, all right, where do we go next? Have that approved, go to the school committee. Every year the handbook is modified and policies are reviewed and changed.
It's a group, you know, it's meant for about 8 participants. So, you know, I mean, that's the tricky part I think we're in right now is that school just started and we haven't, you know, fortunately I don't think we've had kids, I can't
I
speak
will
for the...
say that vaping appears to be down. We're only 2 months into school. I'm hoping that the ban has helped. And I'm hoping that, you know, the school's been saying vaping's bad, but now it's all over the media. You turn on the news, the television commercials, and I think kids are hearing now, not just from us, people are dying from this, or people in the hospital in critical condition with this. So I'm hoping maybe that factor is kicking in, and students are starting to get
So they're not, because I know at NASA, the bathrooms are terrible. Is it, do your kids go here? Are they vaping in the bathrooms?
They are.
Yeah,
I've attended.
so kids know that, you guys don't know that.
So what I'd like to say to that is that this vaping toolkit that we created has several different school policy examples that have been recommended by the state as far as how to write out a chemical health policy that includes e-cigarettes and vapes. It's up to each individual school as to how they implement that and whether or not they take those recommendations. But MIAA, the Mass Interscholastic Association, somebody help me out there. Athletic Association, there we go. They actually revised their regulations this year as well, and that does include step-by-step and increasing consequences.
Yeah, so it's categorized the same as any other illicit substance in terms of the punitive nature of kids being out of that sport for a while. So there is, for the student athletes at least, there is an increased threat. Right.
Also the chemical health violation.
Yeah.
Right, and we have a chemical health policy that covers any type of chemical misuse, which affects athletics and extracurricular activities as well. So it's a multi-pronged approach. I did want to say, in terms of bathrooms, what will help, and I don't know if this is a good analogy or not, but I'm going to use the bullying situation where a few years back, students wouldn't step up. They'd see something, they'd turn away. And there was a campaign on, step forward, say something, do something. And now kids come forward if they see somebody being mistreated. So I think with the vaping, we also have to get kids into the mode of, you see something going on in the bathroom, tell somebody, come forward. Go to who you trust, a teacher, a guidance counselor, the school nurse, the health teacher, administration. The more kids that come forward and say, we're not going to tolerate this, then it helps us also to identify where this is happening, when it's happening, who's doing this. And we also, students who will come forward to us, we talk to them about how we're going to handle it. You know, we say to them, we're not going to say, Sarah Smith came to us and said, you were vaping in the bathroom. You know, we have ways of saying, look, we caught it on the camera system in the school. We saw you coming out of the bathroom. So we work to set the student's mind at ease that, you know, we know how to professionally handle this, so it's not putting any particular student on the spot. So as parents, it would help if you can encourage your kids to, go to someone you trust with specific information, when it happens, as soon as it happens, go to someone so we can say, okay, it happened at this time, at this hallway, this bathroom. That will help us.
What about like a message? I mean, they all have like phones. What if they, what if there's a way to communicate, anonymously or not, to you guys about people they're seeing smoking in the bathroom? Because kids are not going to want to walk into the principal's office.
Well, I'll tell you, some kids do come forward, but not enough.
Right,
Not enough.
I was curious because I know, like I said, it's still new and you guys are implementing, but my son was at the dance this weekend, had a great time, loved it, and I can't get a ton of information out of him, but one thing he did comment is that in the cafeteria, he never saw poo, but there was vaping, because he goes, oh yeah, you could smell it. It was during the dance. So, I mean, I'm not saying that you need to like pat down every kid before they come in, but how?
Well, I'll tell you, we have chaperones.
Right.
Chaperones circulate. We have chaperones that
I'm sure
go
kids
into
are
the
very subtle and
bathroom.
discreet, but yeah, he did comment that
And
you
with
could
the
smell it at
vaping,
the
it
dance.
is very discreet. It's not like the old days when there was cigarette smoking where you'd walk by the bathroom that don't have doors on them to the entry, and you would smell it. You could go in and you could smell it.
But they can smell it. The kids go in the bathroom. My son doesn't go to the bathroom. He doesn't go to the
But
bathroom.
I'll tell you, in the beginning of the vaping epidemic, we would smell that sweet, fruity smell.
Yeah, that's what
So
if
you
the kids
knew
can
something
dance.
happened.
But if the kids are seeing it, then why aren't you guys, I guess is my question.
Right.
If the kids go to the bathroom.
Well, we're not in the bathroom every moment that the kids are going,
Right,
in the
but
bathroom.
And besides, changing of class, kids can come and go into the bathrooms, but we ask staff to really be, not to send 2 kids out at a time. The children are supposed to check their cell phone at, beginning to class, so if they're leaving the classroom to go to the restroom, they shouldn't be taking their phone. As a school nurse, kids will walk in freely with their cell phone, and, it's like, well, why are you here with your cell phone if you're just either coming in to use my restroom or for whatever reason you're here? And I'll say, I spoke to Mr. Almo, we had a student come in, and I went into the bathroom, I get a little suspicious after 2 or 3 days, and I smelled, a little bit of fruitiness. It's hard, like you said, Bath and Body Works, or, these lotions kids are using today, it's hard to determine. At that point, I certainly will have more conversations with this child when they come in the next time, and every time the child comes in, I walk into the bathroom before and after if I'm, out and about, but, you can't, you have to respect their privacy as well.
Prevention is really the big thing. It's about parents educating themselves and knowing what's out there and talking to their kids, and it really does take a village.
Right, but look at this. Look at who's here. None of us vape, I suspect.
One of the other policies that we instituted was with cell phones. We found that students, when they were asking to go to the bathroom, were taking their phones or taking their backpack, and we quickly realized that kids were texting each other to meet in the bathroom or meet here and there. So now teachers have a cell phone caddy, phones get placed in there at the start of class, and kids pick them up on the way out. If someone has to go to the bathroom, the phone stays, the backpack stays. So it's a combination of efforts, things that we are trying to help combat some of these issues. It's going to take time.
How many people here are part of the administration?
In terms of the people that patrol
No, I mean in this room.
Well, Joy, the nurse.
Yeah, Cheryl is the nurse.
Sorry, you're the
Principal
parent or a
resource
police
officer.
Resource officer.
Resource officer, so there's like 5 parents here.
Yeah, right. And a guy who sells vape, no offense.
My son goes in the sixth
That's
school.
why
That's why I came into.
But I bet he doesn't vape. I suspect
No,
he does not vape, right?
he started knowing last year, and he tells me that in the school they are teaching them to not vape and everything. So I thought, how do you get this information? And he just started in the school, sometimes kids does this and they are calling this name. I says, do you want to really do it? He says, no, it's bad for health, this and that. So which helps, like when they educated last year. And then I was worried, like I sells, that's a business. Business is separate, but health is more important for kids or whatever the next generation. Because that's not made for the kids, that's made for adult. So adult can change back to the cigarette. I don't mind if the business lose. But it's more for health. So, but I want to know that when my kid's gonna do, how I'm gonna find out. I don't want him to do it either. And like I want to keep an eye on other kids too that who comes in the store, you know.
Good.
You know, I don't want to sell it to them. I want to keep an eye on my employees that what they are doing. They are checking IDs or not. I want to, you know, like tell the, you know, all the Barnstable County that they have a program that they come and tell us, like in the town meetings and everything, that to not sell this product anymore and like that. But I tell them that put the compulsory system that you gotta have scanned ID, and that data goes to the town. I try to, you know, improve
Right.
the
Sounds
whole
like you're trying to do all the things
Yeah.
you can to prevent that.
But
from,
they
yeah,
do
diversion.
have a different kind of all the, you know, suggestions right now. They are not coming on the certain points, so it's only this 21 plus smoke shop. They
Right.
try to open it. But that's the same thing that she says, that their siblings buying for them.
Right.
How you going to...
How do you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
And to your point of the parents and the numbers that are here, that's why everyone that's doing this type of work, you know, the schools, the county, whoever it may be, they use so many different methods of reaching out to people, because you're not always going to get the crowd right in front of you, but if you're giving the information to them in a way that is easily digestible to them, then they're going to be more willing to accept it, especially if you're just giving them straightforward facts and not kind of blowing up the figures and using fear tactics and scare tactics, which is one thing that we know absolutely doesn't work with kids. So it's really, it's not necessarily about how many are in this room right now. It's about how many are hearing this information. And, you know, as Joy said earlier, you know, there's been information provided at the coaches' night, at the curriculum nights, at the orientations. You know, I'm sure your kids have been working on stuff. That was a great little video that they did. In fact, send that to me and I'll put it on the county site.
Yeah, and we are filming tonight's presentation, and we'll put that on the website, that hopefully a lot more parents can access the information from the comfort of their home and learn from this, and that's the goal. And
it's really about getting the information out there. You know, if parents don't know what they're dealing with, and if they have misinformation, then how can they educate their kids?
And so talk to your friends, talk to the other parents you know, tell them what you learned, tell them to check out the video on the website to learn everything themselves. I mean, you know, that alone will help spread the information to an even wider audience. So your homework.
And there are bags on the table out there. Grab one on your way out. There's a lot of great information in there too.
Are there more questions? I mean, I don't want to kick everybody out, but I want to be respectful of how much time we're taking. If you have more questions for either Kim or our administrators, please ask now.
Or email me. My contact information is everywhere in the bag and on here. So, you know, if you have a question, a burning question you don't want to ask right now, please email me. I'm happy to answer anything that I can, or send you to the person that can, if I can.
Thank you. Well, a big round of applause for Kim. Thank you all for coming tonight. Hopefully all the parents signed in on one of the sign-in sheets. That would be helpful to us. And feel free to grab a sticker as your reward for coming.